Kel had seen many wars. As a historian observer of the Lorathi people, it was his duty to watch and record. He had witnessed the fall of empires. He had documented the death of entire worlds. But standing on the burning soil of Velro 7, watching the sky turn red with fire, Kel felt something he had not felt in many years. Fear. The Morath Dominion had been attacking for 3 standard cycles. Their war machines moved across the planet like a dark tide. They destroyed everything. Cities burned. Mines collapsed. The civilian shelters were running out of food and water. And the coalition forces, the brave soldiers from a dozen different species, were breaking. Kel stood at the observation post and watched the retreat. The Bryn soldiers ran past him first. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and many legs. Good fighters, usually. But now their eyes were empty. They had given up. Behind them came the Tolek. They were tall and covered in wet blue skin. They moved slowly, dragging their wounded. One of them stopped near Kel and looked at him with tired eyes. "Why do you stay, historian?" The Tolek asked. "There is nothing left to record here. Only death." Kel held up his recording device. "Death is also history." The Tolek made a sound like a sad laugh and kept walking. Kel turned back to watch the battlefield. The Morath machines were getting closer. He could see their black shapes moving through the smoke. They looked like giant insects made of metal and hate. Their weapons glowed with orange fire. Every few seconds, another explosion lit up the horizon. This was the end, Kel thought. He had seen it before. A planet die slowly at first, then all at once. Velro 7 was dying now. Then the transmission came. Kel heard it through the communication system at the observation post. A calm voice, speaking in the common galactic language. "Coalition Command, this is the 77th Expeditionary Division of Earth. We are entering orbit. Requesting landing coordinates for immediate deployment." Kel felt his thin body go still. Earth. The humans were coming. He had heard stories about humans, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard stories. They came from a world called Earth, a planet so dangerous that other species called it a death world. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The animals were killers. And somehow, against all logic, intelligent life had evolved there. The humans, Kel had never seen one in person. The Lorathi preferred to keep their distance from violent species. But now, standing on a dying world, Kel realized he was about to meet them. The reaction at the coalition base was strange. Kel watched the other species receive the news. Some showed relief. The Tolek commander closed his eyes and whispered something that sounded like a prayer. But others showed something different. Something that looked like fear. A Bryn officer near Kel made a clicking sound with his jaws. "The Deathworlders," he said. "They send the Deathworlders. Is that not good?" Kel asked. "We need help." The Bryn looked at him with all 6 of his eyes. "You have never seen humans fight, have you, historian?" "No. Then you do not understand." The Bryn turned away. "We asked for help. They are sending monsters." Kel did not know what to say. He returned to his observation post and waited. The human ships arrived 2 hours later. They came down through the burning atmosphere like black arrows. No lights, no decoration. Just dark metal falling from the sky. Kel counted 12 dropships. They moved in perfect formation, cutting through the smoke and fire without slowing down. The ships landed at the coalition base with a sound like thunder. Kel watched from a distance as the doors opened. Smoke poured out, and then the humans emerged. They were smaller than Kel expected. Much smaller than the Tolek, shorter than the Bryn. They had soft skin with no armor, no scales, no protective shell. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They looked fragile, breakable, but they moved differently than any species Kel had ever seen. There was something in the way they walked, something in the way they looked around at the burning world. They did not seem afraid. They did not seem worried. They looked at the fire and smoke like it was normal, like they had seen worse. An old Dalek commander walked up to Kel. His name was Voss, and he had fought in many wars. His blue skin was covered in scars. "You are watching them," Voss said. "The humans." "Yes," Kel replied. "They seem small." Voss made a rough sound in his throat. "Small. Yes. That is what the Mora thought when they first met humans. That is what the Creel Syndicate thought. That is what the Burning Fleet thought." He paused. "They are all gone now." Kel looked at the old commander. "You have fought beside humans before?" "Once, long ago." Voss's eyes became distant. "I watched 50 of them hold a mountain pass against 2,000 enemies. They held it for 6 days. When we finally reached them, only 11 were still alive. They were out of ammunition. They were fighting with knives and rocks and their bare hands." He shook his head slowly. "I have never seen anything like it. I hope I never see anything like it again." Kel looked back at the humans. They were unloading equipment now, weapons and supplies. One of them, a female with short black hair, was laughing at something another soldier said, laughing, on a dying world. Surrounded by death. "What are they?" Kel asked quietly. Voss was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "They are what happens when a species refuses to die. Their planet tried to kill them every day for millions of years. And they survived. They did not just survive, they conquered. They tamed their death world and then reached for the stars." The old commander turned to walk away. "Do not let their size fool you, historian. Those creatures are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy." Kel watched the humans as night fell over Velro 7. The fire still burned on the horizon. The Morath machine still moved in the darkness. But something had changed. Something in the air felt different. The monsters had arrived, and for the first time in 3 cycles, Kel felt something other than fear. He felt hope. Kel spent the next day watching the humans. He told himself it was his duty as a historian. He needed to record their behavior. But the truth was simpler. He could not look away. The 77th Expeditionary Division set up their camp next to the Coalition base. They worked fast. Within hours, they had built defensive walls, weapon stations, and sleeping areas. They moved like water flowing around problems, never stopping, never wasting energy. But it was not their efficiency that fascinated Kel. It was everything else. The humans ate meat. Cooked meat. Kel watched them gather around fires, burning animal flesh and putting it in their mouths. The smell was strange and strong. Other species kept their distance. The humans laughed. Constantly. They told jokes that Kel did not understand. They hit each other on the back and made loud sounds. One group played a game with small paper cards, shouting and arguing like children. Another group threw a ball back and forth for no reason at all. They were surrounded by death. The Morath could attack at any moment. And the humans were playing games. A Bryn soldier walked past Kel, shaking his head. "Insane," the Bryn muttered. "They are completely insane." Kel decided to get closer. He found the human commander sitting alone, cleaning a weapon. The man was older than the others, maybe 40 Earth years. His face was covered in scars, 3 long lines that ran from his forehead to his jaw. His eyes were dark and calm. "Excuse me," Kel said. "I am Kel, a historian observer of the Lorathi." The man looked up. His eyes studied Kel for a moment. Then he nodded. "Captain Tae-wook, 77th Division." He gestured to a nearby crate. "Sit, if you want." Kel sat. His thin body fit easily on the crate. "I have some questions, Captain." "For my records, ask." Your world, Earth. I have heard it is dangerous. Taewook smiled. It was a small smile, but it changed his whole face. Dangerous. Yes, that is one word for it. Can you describe it? The captain set down his weapon. He looked up at the red sky of Velro 7, thinking. Earth has stronger gravity than most worlds. Everything is heavier. Walking is harder. Running is harder. Our bones grow thick. Our muscles grow strong. He paused. The weather tries to kill you. We have storms that spin in circles and destroy cities. Waves of water taller than buildings. The ground itself shakes and breaks open. Kel felt his skin grow pale. And you survive this? We survive everything. Taewook picked up his weapon again. Earth has millions of species. Most of them can kill you. We have animals with teeth as long as your arm. Animals with poison that stops your heart. Tiny creatures you cannot even see that make you sick and die. He shrugged. We learn to fight. We learn to run. We learn to never give up. Never? Never. The captain looked at Kel with those calm, dark eyes. Humans are persistent hunters, historian. Do you know what that means? Kel shook his head. Long ago, before we had weapons or tools, we hunted animals by chasing them. Not fast, we are not fast. But we do not stop. We walk and run and walk again. For hours. For days. The animal runs away, but it gets tired. It needs to rest. We do not rest. We keep coming. Eventually, the animal cannot run anymore. And we catch it. Taewook smiled again. That is what we are, historian. We are the thing that does not stop. Kel felt a chill run through his fragile body. A voice called out. Captain. The historian bothering you? Kel turned. A woman walked toward them. She was smaller than Taewook, with sharp features and eyes that never stopped moving. She wore the same armor as the other humans, but she carried herself differently, like a blade waiting to cut. Lieutenant Hannah, Taewook said. This is Kel. He is writing history. Hannah looked at Kel. Her gaze made him feel like prey. But then she smiled and held out something small and brown. Hungry, historian? It is a ration bar. Will not kill you. Kel took the bar carefully. Thank you. Hannah sat down next to her captain. The Tolek are nervous. They think the Marth will attack tonight. They might, Taewook said. Good. Hannah's smile grew wider. I am getting bored. Kel stared at her. You want them to attack? I want to finish this. Hannah looked toward the dark horizon. Every day we wait, more civilians die. More soldiers die. I do not like waiting. That night, the Marth did attack. Kel was near the defensive wall when the alarm sounded. He heard the screaming of energy weapons, saw the flash of plasma fire. The coalition soldiers scrambled to their positions. The Bryn clicked their jaws in panic. The Tolek shouted orders, but the humans did not scramble. They did not panic. They simply moved. Kel watched them flow toward the battle like shadows. No shouting. No confusion. Just calm, silent movement. They raised their weapons and began firing with perfect accuracy. A large human ran past Kel, the one called Sergeant Seok. He was huge, even for a human. He carried a weapon almost as big as Kel's entire body. He did not speak. He did not even look at the enemy. He just aimed and fired, aimed and fired. Each shot hit its target. Kel saw Lieutenant Hannah leading a group toward a breach in the wall. More soldiers were pouring through. Hannah did not slow down. She ran straight at them, firing her weapon. Her face showing no fear at all. And then Kel saw something he would never forget. A young human, the medic, Corporal Yuna, was dragging a wounded Bryn soldier to safety. The Bryn was twice her size, but she pulled him with one arm. Her other arm held a small weapon, firing at the enemy. A Morris soldier charged at her. She shot it in the head without breaking stride. She kept dragging the Brin. She kept firing. The attack lasted maybe 15 minutes. It felt like hours. But when it was over, the Morris were dead or running. The breach was sealed. The base was safe. The humans walked back to their camp. Some of them were wounded. They wrapped their wounds and kept walking. One soldier had blood running down his face. He was laughing at something his friend said. Cal stood in the darkness. Shaking Dot, he finally understood what the Tolek commander meant. He finally understood why the galaxy whispered about humans. They were not soldiers. They were something else. Something older. Something that had been forged in fire and blood for millions of years. Cal looked down at his thin hands. His people were scholars, thinkers. They had evolved on a gentle world with soft light and calm weather. They had never needed to fight. The humans had fought every single day. They had fought their planet. They had fought their animals. They had fought each other. And they had never, ever stopped. Now Cal understood. The Morith were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting the children of a death world. And the children of a death world did not know how to lose. The War Council met in a damaged building at the center of the Coalition base. Cal stood in the corner, recording everything. The room was full of commanders from different species. They all looked tired. They all looked afraid. On the holographic display in the center of the room, a massive shape moved slowly across the map. It was called the Maul, a Morris siege weapon, a mobile fortress the size of a small city. It had hundreds of weapons, thousands of soldiers, and armor so thick that nothing could break it. The Maul was heading toward the last civilian shelter on Varro 7, 40 hours until it arrived. When it did, everyone inside would die. "We cannot stop it," said the Bring commander. His voice was flat, defeated. "Our weapons are too weak. Our forces are too small. Perhaps we should discuss evacuation," said a Tolek general. "Save who we can. There are not enough ships." Another commander shook his head. "We cannot evacuate 50,000 civilians in 40 hours. The room fell into silence. Kel watched the faces of the commanders. He saw the same expression on all of them. Despair. Then Captain Taewok stood up. The human commander walked to the holographic display. He studied them all for a long moment. His scarred face showed no emotion. Then he spoke. "There is a weakness." Every eye in the room turned to him. "Here." Taewok pointed to a spot on the image. "The coolant system. The Maw generates massive heat when it fires its weapons. This system keeps it from destroying itself. Without coolant, the core overheats. The whole thing burns from the inside." "We know this," the Bring commander said. "But the coolant system is inside the fortress. There is no way to reach it. There is one way." Taewok looked around the room. Infantry assault. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then the Tolek general laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "Infantry? Against the Maw? Captain, that would require crossing 3 kilometers of open ground. No cover, constant fire from hundreds of weapons. Then climbing the fortress itself. It is not possible. It is not probable," Taewok said calmly. "That is different from not possible. How many soldiers would survive such an assault? Unknown. But some would reach the target. That is enough." The Bring commander clicked his jaws. "You are talking about suicide." Lieutenant Hana stepped forward. She had been standing quietly behind her captain. Now her sharp eyes scanned the room. "We're talking about winning." "This is madness," the Tolek general said. "Your entire force would be destroyed." "Maybe." Taewok nodded. "But the Maw would be destroyed too. And 50,000 civilians would live." He looked at the general. Is that not worth the price? The room was silent again. Cal watched the humans. Their faces were calm, determined. They were not arguing for their own survival. They were arguing for the right to die. After the council ended, Cal found Private Q outside. The young human was checking communications equipment. He had quick eyes and a crooked smile. Cal had noticed him making jokes during the previous night's battle. The council accepted the plan, Cal said. Kyung nodded. I heard. We move at dawn. You do not seem worried. The human looked up at Cal. His smile faded, then returned. I am always worried, historian. That is the secret. You think humans are not afraid. We are afraid all the time. Every moment of every day. He tapped his chest. Fear lives right here. It never leaves. Then how do you do these things? How do you charge into certain death? Kyung thought about this. Then he shrugged. Because there are things worse than dying. Letting innocent people die when you could have saved them. Running away when you should have stood. Living as a coward. He shook his head. Death is easy. Living with shame is hard. Cal did not know what to say. Besides, Kyung added, his smile returning, we do not plan to die. We plan to win. Dying is just an option. Cal found Captain Taewook later that evening. The commander was sitting alone, looking at a small photograph. Cal could not see what was in the picture. Captain, Cal said, I would like to accompany the assault tomorrow. As an observer, Taewook looked up. His dark eyes studied Cal for a long moment. It will be dangerous. Your species is not built for combat. I know. But this is history. I must witness it. The captain was silent. Then he nodded slowly. Stay behind Sergeant Seok. He is the biggest target. The enemy will shoot at him first. Do not stop moving. Do not look back. If you fall behind, we cannot wait for you. I understand. No. Taewook shook his head. You do not. But you will. He put the photograph away. Get some rest, historian. Tomorrow you will see why the galaxy fears us. That night, Kel could not sleep. He walked through the human camp, watching them prepare. They cleaned weapons. They checked armor. They wrote messages to people far away, family members they might never see again. But they also laughed. They sang songs. They shared food and told stories about home. Corporal Yuna was teaching a card game to some young soldiers. Sergeant Seok was doing some kind of exercise, lifting heavy objects over and over. Lieutenant Hana was sharpening a blade that looked very old. Kel stopped near a group of soldiers who were talking quietly. My daughter is 3 years old now, one of them said. She is learning to walk. My wife sent a video. Show us, another soldier said. They gathered around a small screen. A tiny human child took stumbling steps, then fell. The soldiers laughed and made soft sounds. She is beautiful, someone said. She is perfect, the father replied. His voice was thick with emotion. Kel watched these soldiers, these warriors who would charge into death tomorrow, looking at a picture of a child learning to walk. He saw the love in their eyes, the tenderness, and he finally understood something important. Humans were not monsters. They were not killing machines. They loved deeply. They cared completely. They felt joy and pain and hope and fear just like everyone else. But when something threatened the things they loved, they became something else. They became unstoppable. Dawn was coming. The sky was starting to lighten. Kel looked toward the horizon, where the mall waited in the darkness. Tomorrow, 200 humans would charge across 3 kilometers of death. Most of them would not survive. They knew this. They accepted this, and they were going anyway, because somewhere behind them, 50,000 strangers needed protecting, because that was what humans did. They protected. They fought. They charged into the darkness so others could. Live in the light, Kel held his recording device tight and prepared to witness history. The sun rose red over Velro 7. Smoke and ash filled the air. In the distance, the mall waited, a mountain of black metal and death. Kel stood among the soldiers of the 77th. His thin body trembled. The gravity here was too strong. The air was too hot. Everything in his body told him to run, to hide, to survive. But he stayed. 200 humans formed the line. They checked their weapons one last time. They looked at each other with eyes that said goodbye. Captain Taewook walked to the front. His scarred face was calm. He turned to face his soldiers. "Today, we go forward," he said. His voice was not loud, but everyone heard it. "We do not stop. We do not turn back. Behind us are 50,000 people who cannot fight. Fathers and mothers. Children. They are counting on us." He paused. "Some of us will not come back. I will not lie to you. But those who fall will fall facing forward. And those who survive will finish the mission." The soldiers stood straighter. "Earth remembers," Taewook said, and 200 voices answered as one. "Earth remembers." Then they charged. Kel ran with them. His legs burned. His lungs screamed. But he ran. The maw saw them coming. Its weapons turned. The first shots hit the ground around them, sending dirt and fire into the air. Kel saw soldiers fall, one moment running, the next moment gone. But the others did not stop. They did not even slow down. Sergeant Seok ran beside Kel, his huge body blocking the worst of the fire. His armor was already smoking from hits. He did not seem to notice. He just kept running, his heavy weapon firing at the fortress. The sound was terrible. Energy weapons screamed. Explosions shook the ground. Soldiers shouted commands and warnings. Somewhere, someone was screaming in pain. Kel saw a soldier go down, a young man, barely an adult. His legs were gone below the knee. But instead of crying, instead of begging for help, he grabbed his weapon and kept shooting from the ground. He was still shooting when Kel lost sight of him. Lieutenant Hannah was at the front now, leading the charge. A blast hit near her and knocked her down. A blast hit near her and knocked her down. Kel thought she was dead. But she rolled, stood, and kept running. Blood was flowing from her shoulder. She ignored it. Private Kyung ran beside Kel, working his communication equipment while sprinting through fire. "Keep moving, historian," he shouted. "Do not think. Just move." A plasma bolt hit Kyung in the side. He stumbled, gasped, then found his balance. He looked down at the smoking hole in his armor and laughed, actually laughed. "That one hurt," he yelled and kept running. Kel could not understand. How? How did they keep going? They were halfway across the open ground now. Half the soldiers were gone, dead or wounded or left behind. But the others charged forward, always forward. Corporal Yuna was carrying a wounded soldier on her back. The man was unconscious, maybe dead. But she would not leave him. She ran with his weight on her shoulders, her small legs pumping, her face twisted with effort. A Morith shot grazed her leg. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept going. Kel saw things he would never forget. Things that would live in his mind forever. He saw a soldier lose his arm to an energy blast. The man looked at the empty space where his arm used to be, said something angry in the human language, picked up his weapon with his remaining hand, and kept fighting. He saw two soldiers carrying a third between them. When one of the carriers was hit, the last one dragged both of his friends toward cover, refusing to leave them. He saw a woman take a blade through her stomach. She pulled it out, used it to kill the Morith who stabbed her, and walked 10 more meters before she collapsed. Humans. They were not stronger than other species. They were not faster. They could not heal wounds or regrow limbs. Their bodies were soft and fragile, but something inside them was unbreakable. The survivors reached the maw, less than 100 now. They began to climb. The fortress was alive with enemy soldiers. Morath poured from every door, every opening. They fired down at the climbing humans. They threw bodies off the walls. The humans climbed anyway. Kel could not climb. His Lorathi body was too weak. He found shelter behind a piece of fallen metal and watched. He saw Sergeant Seok reach a platform and hold it alone against 20 enemies. His armor was destroyed. His body was bleeding from a dozen wounds. But he stood like a mountain, his weapon roaring, until other soldiers could join him. He saw Lieutenant Hannah fight 3 Mara soldiers with her bare hands after her weapon broke. She killed 2 of them before the third stabbed her in the leg. She killed that one too, took its weapon, and kept moving. He saw Captain Taewook climbing higher than anyone else. The captain was wounded badly. Kel could see the blood trailing behind him. But he climbed with terrible purpose, his eyes fixed on the target above, the coolant system. The heart of the maw. Taewook reached it. He was alone now. The other soldiers were fighting below, holding back the endless wave of enemies to give him time. Kel watched the captain pull explosives from his armor. His movements were slow. He was dying. Kel realized. Dying but still moving. Taewook set the charges. He looked down at his soldiers, his people fighting and dying below. His face showed something that Kel had never seen before. Pride. Pure, absolute pride. Then Taewook looked up at the sky. He closed his eyes, and he spoke words that Kel could not hear. The captain pressed the trigger. The explosion was blinding. Kel felt the heat wash over him, even from his hiding place. The maw shook, then shook again. Then the entire fortress began to burn from within. Taewook was gone, consumed by the fire he had created. But the maw was dying too. Explosions ripped through its body. Weapons went silent. The great machine that had terrorized the planet began to fall apart, piece by piece. The surviving soldiers retreated. Less than 60 now. They carried their wounded. They dragged their dead. Lieutenant Hannah was leading them. Her face was covered in blood, hers and others. Her leg was barely working, but she walked at the front, guiding her people to safety. Behind them, the maw collapsed. It fell slowly, like a dying giant, and hit the ground with a sound like thunder. Fire and smoke rose into the sky. Kel watched it burn. He had seen many things in his long life. He had witnessed wars and disasters and the end of civilizations. But he had never seen anything like this. 200 humans had charged across 3 kilometers of death. They had climbed a fortress designed to destroy armies. And they had won, not because they were stronger, not because they were faster, not because they had better weapons, because they would not stop, because something in their blood, something ancient and fierce, refused to let them quit. Kel looked at the survivors. They were broken, bleeding. Some were crying. Some were silent, but they were standing. They were always standing. And now, Kel understood, truly understood, why the cosmos trembled at the name human. It was not their weapons. It was not their ships. It was not their technology. It was their will. Unbreakable, unstoppable, eternal. The children of Earth had charged into hell itself, and hell had lost. 3 days after the battle, Kel walked through the field where the maw had fallen. The massive fortress lay in ruins, its black metal twisted and broken. Smoke still rose from some parts. The smell of burning filled the air. Kel counted the bodies. 63 humans had died in the assault. Their remains had been collected by their friends. The survivors had wrapped each body carefully, gently, like they were precious things. Because they were. Morith forces had retreated. Without the Maw, they were broken. Their great weapon was destroyed, and their spirit was destroyed with it. The Coalition was already pushing them back across the planet. Valro 7 was saved. 50,000 civilians would live. Fathers would return to their families. Children would grow up and have children of their own. Because of 63 humans who would never go home. Kel walked to the medical center. The Coalition doctors were overwhelmed. 137 humans had survived the assault. Almost all of them were wounded. Some would never walk again. Some had lost eyes, limbs, pieces of themselves that would never grow back. But they were alive. Kel found Lieutenant Hannah in a corner of the medical center. She was sitting up in her bed, her arm wrapped in a healing sleeve. Bandages covered half her face. But her eyes were the same sharp, watching, always calculating. "Historian," she said when she saw him. "Still recording?" "Always." Cal sat on a small chair near her bed. "You are in command now." "Yes." Hannah's voice was quiet. "The captain would want us to keep moving. Do you miss him?" Hannah was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer. "Taewok was the best commander I ever served under. He taught me everything. How to fight, how to lead, how to put the mission before yourself." She paused. "But more than that, he was my friend. He was all our friend. Will you go home now? Back to Earth?" "Soon, but not yet." Hannah looked toward the window, toward the sky. "There are other battles. Other people who need help. We rest, we heal. Then we go where we are needed." Cal nodded slowly. "I have a question. Something I do not understand. Ask. Why? Why do you do this? You could stay on Earth. You could live safe lives. Why do you travel across the galaxy to fight and die for strangers?" Hannah thought about this. The medical machines beeped quietly. Outside, Kel could hear the sounds of the camp soldiers talking, ships moving, life continuing. Because if we do not, who will? Hannah finally said, "We are not better than other species, historian. We are not smarter or stronger or more important. But we know what it is like to be afraid. We know what it is like to face death. And we know that someone has to stand in front of the darkness." She looked at Kel with those sharp eyes. "So we do. We stand. We fight. We die. Because that is what humans do. That is who we are." Later that day, the Coalition forces captured a Morith commander. He was brought in chains to the Coalition base. The generals wanted information about remaining enemy forces. Kel watched the interrogation from behind a screen. The Morith commander was tall and thin, covered in dark armor that was part of his body. His eyes were red and cold. He had led thousands of soldiers. He had destroyed cities. He had killed without mercy. But when they asked him questions, he did not speak about strategy. He did not give numbers or positions. He only asked one question. The small ones. The soft ones. The ones who charged them all. His voice was rough, confused. "What are they?" The Coalition general did not answer. "We killed so many of them," the Morith continued. "We shot them. We stabbed them. We burned them. But they kept coming. They did not run. They did not surrender. Even when they were dying, they crawled toward us." His red eyes were wide now, confused, almost afraid. "What are they?" Kel leaned forward, listening. "I have conquered 100 worlds," the Morith said. "I have broken 100 species. But I have never seen anything like them. They are not natural. They cannot be natural." He shook his head. "What kind of world creates creatures like that?" No one answered, but Kel knew. A death world. A world of fire and storms and predators. A world that tried to kill its children every single day. A world that forged ordinary creatures into something extraordinary. That was what created humans. That night, Cal began writing his report. He had recorded everything. Every battle. Every death. Every act of impossible courage. Now he needed to explain it to the rest of the galaxy. He wrote for hours. He deleted and rewrote. He searched for the right words. Finally, as the sun rose over Vero 7, he finished. His report ended with these words: I came to Vero 7 to document a war. Instead, I witnessed something far older. Something that existed before weapons or ships or civilizations. The humans call it many things: will, spirit, heart. They have dozens of words for it, because they have needed it so often. Humans are small. They are fragile. They live short lives on a world that has tried to kill them since they first drew breath. Their bodies break easily. Their blood flows quickly. By all logic, they should have died long ago, but they did not die. They adapted. They survived. They grew strong not in body, but in something deeper. Something that cannot be measured or understood. I watched 200 of them charge across an impossible battlefield. I watched them climb a fortress of death. I watched them fall, one by one, and I watched the others keep going. Not because they did not feel fear. They felt it. I saw it in their eyes, but they charged anyway. The Morath believed they were conquering a weak species. They were wrong. They awakened something ancient. Something that has been sleeping since Earth first learned to make fire. Now, I understand why the great empires speak of humans in whispers. Why pirates flee at the sight of their ships. Why the Morath, who have crushed 100 worlds, hesitated before invading human space. The cosmos does not tremble because humans are strong. It trembles because humans do not know how to stop. They will fight until they win or until they are all dead. There is no middle ground. There is no surrender. There is only forward. I am a historian. I record the truth. And the truth is this: if you ever face humanity in war, pray to whatever gods you believe in, because the children of Earth are coming, and they do not know how to lose. Cal saved his report and walked outside. The sun was warm. The air was clearing. Somewhere in the camp, the surviving humans were gathering. Someone had started a song. An old Earth melody, sad and beautiful. One by one, other voices joined in. They sang about soldiers coming home. About wars ending. About hope. Cal watched them. These broken, bandaged, grieving warriors. They had lost friends. They had lost pieces of themselves. They had seen things that would haunt them forever. But they were singing. They were always singing. Lieutenant Hannah walked out of the medical center. Her arm was still in the healing sleeve. She moved slowly, carefully. But she was moving. She looked at the sky. She looked at her soldiers. And she smiled. "All right," she called out. "Rest time is over. We have work to do." The soldiers laughed. They groaned. They complained. But they stood up. They always stood up. Cal watched them prepare for their next mission. Their next battle. Their next impossible charge into darkness. And he understood. Finally, why the cosmos trembled. Not because of what humans could do. But because of what they were willing to do. Everything. Anything. Whatever it took. Until the job was done. Until the innocent were safe. Until the darkness retreated. The children of Earth gathered their weapons and walked toward the ships. They were battered and broken and grieving. But they were not done. They would never be done. Because somewhere in the galaxy, someone needed help. And humans always answered the call. Cal put away his recording device and followed them. He had found his purpose. He would be their witness. He would tell their story. He would make sure the cosmos never forgot. The humans were coming, and heaven help anyone who stood in their way.